Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Thank you all for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Evan Worley. So, happy Friday to everybody out there. I hope you guys had a pretty entertaining week. I had my brush with death yesterday, and it wasn't anything cool, like explosions or anything like that. It was me crawling on the roof to put up Christmas lights. So, I don't know about you guys, but I am deadly afraid of heights, like incredibly afraid. There's nothing I hate more on planet Earth than being high up in the air with the possibility that I could slide off and fall. Mainly because I think free falling is my biggest fear. If I can stand on my own 2 feet, like on a flat surface, I think I could stand as like anywhere as high as I can without being too afraid. It's just that the slopes of roofs get me to the point where, you know, if I can't stand up, I'm not doing it. It is what it is. If I have to crab walk so I don't slide off and break my leg, then I'm not going to do it. It's just, you're not going to get me to do it. Well, I had to do it. So me and my brother-in-law, we had to get up on the roof, which was incredibly scary. And I don't know why in Texas they have such steep inclines on the ceilings or on the roofs. Like, you don't get any snow. You barely get rain. Why do you need such a heavy incline? Drop it down just a little bit, you know, just a slight slope. You know, you don't have to sit here and live in like New Mexico desert houses where they're just boxes. Like, there's nothing that you have to prep for with a ceiling with that kind of incline. So it took us, you know, what should have been around 30 to 45 minutes took us almost 3 hours, because not only am I afraid of heights, but my brother-in-law is also afraid of heights, and we looked like absolute idiots. I think every single person in our neighborhood was watching and making fun of us, and it did not matter at all. I could barely do it. You know, every time you had to step up another rung on the ladder, it was, you know, that leg shake, that, all right, just breathe, talk yourself through it. I'm not that high up. It's only 8 feet. It's only 10 feet. I'm not that high up. But man, is it freaking high up. Especially with the length of your torso. That's probably like, to be fair, my torso is probably like 3 feet. So it turns 10 feet into 13 feet. That's not tight. I don't like that at all. So yeah, we did that. That was not a lot of fun. For the weekend, pretty much all I got planned is stay out of everyone's way. You know, I got practice tonight. Gotta go to just gotta figure out what we're doing for Christmas. I still gotta buy my parents something. You know, I gotta chop a couple trees down as a gift, because my sister really hates the trees in front of her house, so I gotta chop those things down. That's gonna be a lot of fun, especially because there's a wasp hive in it, and she is not gonna let me get rid of the wasp hive. So I just have to hope that it is too cold for them to actually fly around, and hope they don't sting me. So that'll be a lot of fun. I have that to deal with. But enough about that. We got some news. So basically, I ran across something that I really like to see. And I pretty much just want to talk about why I really like to see it. So, the St. Louis Cardinals general manager came out and he was saying that, hey, we need to re-sign our lifers, essentially. Pretty much like Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright are our number one priorities. Let's get them back. And then, we'll think about adding outside pieces. And I was just sitting back and I was thinking, like, man, I get that we go through this all the time. It's like, who's going to be the next lifer? Who's going to be the next lifer in this? Who's going to be the next lifer in that? Like, obviously we have Clayton Kershaw. Clayton Kershaw is going to be a lifer with the Dodgers. If not, it's going to be incredibly sad. But I feel like people just don't grasp the sentiment of being a lifer with one team. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just sounds weird. And I get that, like, there's I'm not sitting here saying that I'm an owner's guy or anything like that, because the owners, look at freaking Danny Ainge of the Boston Celtics to go to basketball. He'll trade you for anything. It doesn't matter where you came from. You could have been born, you could be Larry Bird's son. He'll trade you in a second. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that I don't like. I'm not sitting here, going for the owners or for the executives saying that, like, oh, you got to be loyal to them. But it's just, I feel like there's something so special with being a lifer, being someone who came up with the team, went through the trials and tribulations of, trying to be someone that, not only, the team likes, but the city adores, like the Derek Jeters, you look at Ted Williams, you look at those guys, you look at the Babe Ruths, the Joe DiMaggios, the Roger Marises, the those type of guys. Even like, who was a later lifer besides Derek Jeter? Did Michael Young go anywhere? I think Michael Young played his entire career with the Texas Rangers. And if he did, just people like that, to where it's like, you're ours. Like, you are our legend. It's like, oh, we didn't have to get him from there. Like, Seattle can claim Griffey, but so can Cincinnati. So can, like, Chicago can't really claim him because he was only there for a couple years and he was number 17 at that time, so he wasn't really even Griffey anymore. But, there were major milestones hit with both teams. So it's like, oh, like, we had some Griffey and they had some Griffey. When you look at Vladimir Guerrero, who is one of my favorite players of all time, there were, like, the first time I ever saw Vlad Guerrero play in a game, he was in an Expos uniform. And I was 4 years old walking into Dodger Stadium down the left field line. And legitimately the first major league pitch I ever saw live in person, Vlad jacked it in the Montreal Expos uniform. Hit an absolute tank that, to my knowledge, which I know absolutely is 100% wrong, he hit it into the parking lot. And I was the biggest Expos fan. I think I was the only person in the entire stadium wearing an Expos hat that day. I had an Expos hat, I had a Dodgers foam finger, and I was like, you know what? This is life. This is what living is. And, I was a big Expos fan because I loved Vladimir Guerrero, and then he shifted over and came to the Anaheim Angels, who was my other favorite team. And, in 2003 and I think in 2004, won the MVP award. So I'm like, awesome, this is great. But then it kind of made me a little sad when he went into the Hall of Fame as an Angel instead of an Expo. Because me thinking back to my, like, the first time I was ever exposed to him, it was in the Expos hat. So I will always kind of think of him as an Expo, even though he's, an Angel. Imagine how awesome it would be, and how much more beloved it would be if, Pedro Martinez was only a Red Sox. Or, he started, as we all know, he started off with the Expos, but he did his best with the Boston Red Sox. So maybe we can say, maybe he was his best with, imagine if he pitched his best when he was with the Expos. And he was just an Expo as well. Or Roger Clemens never even going to the Bronx. He plays his entire career as polarizing and as hated as he is. He's always known as Blue Jay. Barry Bonds is always known as a Pirate. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of, I don't know, players kind of lose their luster a bit. Because, I can see why some people, Barry Bonds, I read the book of Balco and, the book Love Me, Hate Me, I think is what it was called. And Barry Bonds was just, personally, I hate him. But on the baseball field, he was one of the best players ever. You can't deny that, steroids or not. But going through over and over and over again, seeing all those people, look at how, Houston loves Craig Biggio. Look at the way Atlanta loves Chipper Jones and John Smoltz. You know what I'm saying? Look at how the Mets love David Wright. David Wright, let's be very clear about this. David Wright was not the greatest player the Mets have ever had, but they treat him like an absolute king and a legend there. But let's be real. When the Mets were very good, but it was very very sparingly. I'm not even using that word right, but you know what I'm saying. In 2000, what was it? It was 2006. I think they had the best record in baseball, and then that was his I think that was his rookie year, if I'm remembering this correctly. And then, later as we go on down the road, they made the World Series in 2015 against the Kansas City Royals, which they lost. But besides that, those were the two best years that they had. They had the best record in baseball once, and they went to the World Series once, 10 years apart. But that was just the trials and tribulation of David Wright's career, and he spent the whole time with them. He lost. When they lost, he lost, and when they won, he won. And there's just that special feeling that they have with Mets fans. So the fact that we still have a franchise that gives that level of priority with, that level of priority to, the people of the city. Because let's be real, when you have a lifer, it's not really about the person. It's about the city. It really is about the city. It's about the people who are going to the games. You grow up, watching these guys. Me, as a 8-year-old, I got to see Vladimir Guerrero play. My favorite player was in, 2 hours down the freeway. Or 8, depending on what time you left, because it's LA of all places. It was just I got to watch him grow up with, the Angels. He played there until 2011, so he played 7 years there from when not 7 years, he played until 2009, 2010, one of those years. Then he went to Texas and it got weird. And he started wearing that really weird tan arm sleeve. And that didn't really match anything. And he was just not very good anymore. But, it is what it is. Let's go to the Boston Red Sox and go to David Ortiz. I don't know how I missed this example. David Ortiz had maybe 1 year with the Twins. Nobody remembers David Ortiz with the Twins. He didn't solidify himself as a player with the Twins. He really didn't. Nobody knew that. Hell, Twins fans probably didn't even know that. And then, as you get older, you watch him big clutch hit with the Red Sox. Stay with the Red Sox from 2002 or wherever he came from, whenever he came to Boston, all the way until he retired recently. Every single year, you could count on David Ortiz was there. He was batting around 300. He was hitting 30 to 40 homers, and he was crushing 100 RBIs. And if you needed a clutch at-bat with a clutch situation, he was coming through. And there was nothing that anybody can do to stop him. And when you look around at David Ortiz, He's beloved not only in Boston, but everywhere because he earned that respect. It was just that person. And the same goes with opponents. Like, Yankee fans hated David Ortiz. Absolutely hated David Ortiz. But when he took that jersey off and they did their retirement ceremony and they were in New York for his last game inside of Yankee Stadium, they were there to give him a standing ovation. You know, it was just him. It was for all the years of competition, because I think that's what we're losing in our minds, is that, you know, sports are still just competition, and people love competition. It drives everybody to be better. So the fact that people are kind of blowing off the, you know, oh, this team beat us last year, let's work even harder, let's get better, and we'll beat them next year. That's just not really how it's going anymore. In any sport. You know, football, people leave all the time. You know, there are very few lifers in the NFL. You know, I think there are the most lifers in the NFL because there's not a lot of free agent movement every year. But in basketball, heck, like, every year somebody's mad and switches teams. Like, 3 years ago, Kyrie Irving was on the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's been on 3 different teams in 3 years. Like, what are we doing? It's very annoying. I don't understand it. And, you know, the fact that the St. Louis Cardinals are like, listen, like, we have Yadier Molina. He's not going anywhere. He's not pulling a Tom Brady. He's not pulling a Joe Montana. He's not pulling, you know, we're not going to Gary Carter this guy where he's a hometown hero in Montreal and we're just going to trade him to the Mets. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to happen. He's our guy. He is staying our guy. And he is going to be a Cardinal forever. I feel like that needs to be more, you know, more just, what's the word that I'm looking for? More valued. I just like the guy who gets drafted by a team, doesn't really feel like he wants to go anywhere, wants to ride it out with the franchise, and just becomes that team's legend that lives on forever. Because he's going to live on forever. Like, if David Wright, let's be completely real. If David Wright would have left the Mets in 2012 and went to, say, the Giants, we would not talk about David Wright the same way that we're talking about him now. Mets fans, his legacy with Mets fans is going to be way more valued now because he was a lifer than it would have if he would have left for maybe even a couple years. You know what I'm saying? Like, the legend of Evan Longoria in Tampa Bay is pretty much gone because he went to San Francisco, I feel. You know, people aren't going to talk about him to their grandkids the way they would, you know, if he just stayed there, wrote it out, and was an absolute Tampa Bay lifer that they can all, you know, kind of cling to. That's my rant. That's my spiel. I'm about to take a quick break, and I will be talking about a recent couple of trades in the MLB, so I'll be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, everybody, we are back. So, the big trade that just happened a couple days ago, obviously, as everybody's well aware of, Lance Lynn has been traded from the Rangers to the White Sox, who sent Dane Dunning and another pitching prospect to Texas for the All-Star Lance Lynn. Now, Lance Lynn is an incredible pitcher. Don't get me wrong. He was one of the best on the market this year, on the trade market, and he's going to be added to a rotation that is fairly good and pretty young, might I add. So this is how last year's pitching rotation for the Chicago White Sox ended up. It was Lucas Giolito, it was Dallas Keuchel, Dylan Cease, Dane Dunning, Reynaldo Lopez. So pretty solid. It was a pretty solid starting rotation. Even better because Lucas Giolito threw a no-hitter, and Dallas Keuchel had a sub-2 ERA and finished with 63 innings pitched. That was pretty good by him. So you're adding Lance Lynn to the mix. You're taking away Dane Dunning. Now let's look at the numbers that Dane Dunning put up last year. He was 2-0 with a 3.97 ERA in 7 starts. He pitched 34 innings, gave up 25 hits, 4 homers, 35 strikeouts, 13 walks. He had an ERA plus of 1.13. He had a FIP of 3.99, a WHIP of 1.1, 6.6 hits per 9, and a 9.3 strikeout per 9. Not bad. Not a bad pitcher. He was a young pitcher, too. He was only 25. He was the same age as Lucas Giolito. So they gave him up to add to that rotation. A few other rotation guys, they had Gio Gonzalez, but he was 34 years old. I don't think they're bringing him back at all. They had a few other people start a game. Let's see, they had Carlos Rodon. He made a couple starts. Let's see. They had Jonathan Stever make a couple starts. So there were a couple other starts in the mix, but mainly it was just those 5 guys. You're going to take away Dane Dunning, put in Lance Lynn. So let's look at the rest of the White Sox starting rotation and the numbers they put up last year. Lucas Giolito 4-3 with a 3.48 ERA. You have Dallas Keuchel 6-2 with a 1.99 ERA. Dylan Cease with a 5.4, 4.01 ERA. Reynaldo Lopez was 1-3 with a 6.49 ERA. So basically what that tells me is the top 3 is very stacked. They have a 24-year-old in Dylan Cease who is very, very good. Reynaldo Lopez at 26 years old. Let's look at his career stats if he hasn't. Okay, so he's been in the league since he was 22 years old in 2016 with the Washington Nationals. So his career, 5-3 with a 4.91, 3-3 with a 4.72, 7-10 with a 3.91, 10-15 with a 5.38, and a 1-3 with a 6.49. Not great. He's hasn't really progressed downward in the way. So maybe what they could do is they could package him in another trade, try and get somebody else, maybe put him down in the minor leagues, and hunt out one of the tier 2 pitchers on the free agent market. And of those tier 2 on the free agent market, you have Jake Odorizzi, Taijuan Walker, Masahiro Tanaka. You got Jose Quintana, James Paxton, Garrett Richards, Corey Kluber, J.A. Happ, John Lester even. I think John Lester could be a good go of it, mainly just because, him, the veteran presence with him and Dallas Keuchel. He has multiple World Series rings under his belt. We all know about the big games that he pitches. They also have a trade market with Sonny Gray and Blake Snell, both options, but I don't think that they would go with another trade, especially with Sonny Gray and Blake Snell. Blake Snell still has 3 years, but, they'd probably want to lock him up more long-term than that. So I could see Garrett Richards. I could see Corey Kluber or John Lester. I feel like any of these names, Jose Quintana, James Paxton, J.A. Happ even, like these guys could be the ones to fill out the roster with the Chicago White Sox. an American League executive said, I suppose it'll come close. It could cause a domino effect. It puts the spotlight more on some of the top free agents. So basically what some executives are saying is that, that Lance Lynn moving teams is going to start a domino effect to where free agents are going to start signing. Now, they say that all the time, every year. Is this the first one to go down? Is this the one to do it? Is now are people going to sign? Because we're getting close to winter meetings right now, or I think we could possibly be in the winter meetings. I'm not very sure. But, with the Rule 5 draft coming and, the winter meetings, this is a time where things start to pop off. I'll get to the segment later in the show where we talk about the top prospect or the top moves, from the winter meetings of previous years. I had to go back and I had to look at some of the moves that were made, and I was surprised just how many moves have been made dating all the way back to, the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, those type of deals. And just the significance of the Rule 5 draft. The Rule 5 draft that's coming up, there were some big names, some Hall of Famers that were claimed in the Rule 5 draft. So stick around and you'll hear about that one. Speaking of trade options for Sonny Gray and Blake Snell, Reynaldo Lopez, he could be packaged in a trade. I don't see them doing that, but Sonny Gray is owed $20 million over the next 2 years. That's not too bad. And he has a $12 million club option for 2023, so you can, the team could even deny that and go after somebody else in 2022. Granted, I don't know what the pitching market's going to look like, but I doubt, it's going to be like a bad market or anything like that. Even if it is, the White Sox are going to be such good contenders that they can probably swoop up somebody off the market anyways, who's just going to want to, compete for a World Series. So they have that in their favor. As we know, Blake Snell has $39 million left on his deal that runs through 2023 as well. So, maybe they take Sonny Gray and give him the option and then just wait and hope that Blake Snell will be able to come over. I still think that they would go after John Lester. If I were them, I would go after John Lester for 1 year. This would be my plan if I was the White Sox. I would go John Lester for this year and then see what's going on and keep my eye out for Marcus Stroman. I think Marcus Stroman he doesn't get a ton of buzz. He gets some buzz, not a ton, but he deserves it. He deserves all the praise because we saw it in the World Baseball Classic. He put it on the biggest stage, and he showed up and he showed out and shut Puerto Rico down. That was one of the most incredible games I had ever watched. If you did not watch the 2017 World Baseball Classic, boy, oh boy, did you miss out. That was one of the most incredible things I've ever watched in my entire life, and I'm still kicking myself that I did not go to the championship game. I'm still kicking. They were only $100. Tickets were $100 to the title game of the World Baseball Classic, and I didn't go. And that was probably one of the top mistakes of my life. So what I would do, because even then, if you want to swap pieces, you could do Stroman for whoever signs with you. You know what I'm saying? Just like as a one-on-one just type of deal, and maybe throw in a couple prospects. Because you already have a team that's built for competing. And even if you go out and you sign Marcell Ozuna or something along those lines to fill up the DH hole and, really mesh with Robert and Eloy Jimenez and all those type of guys, you're clear. You're on a clear path to the World Series. And you can make, you're not going to need these low-level prospects because you're contending now. You're not waiting for them to develop into star players. You got to give them away to get something back in return. That's going to be something that you're going to need. So I think that is definitely something that could be done, especially with a team like the Mets. The Mets just, at this point, they're just throwing money at the wall and hoping that, something's safe. They're literally playing pin the money on the donkey, but it's just with players' faces. They're just like, all right, let's put $1 here. Oh, George Springer, cool. So realistically, they could be like the Marlins were a few years ago, where they tried to build their super team when they got Jose Reyes, and they got, I forget who else they got. I remember they got, Mark Burley was on that team too. They got Mark Burley, they got Jose Reyes, and they got a few other big name players, and they were, next thing you know, it was like, oh, the Marlins, they went out and bought all these players. They're going to be so great. Like, watch out for the Marlins. And then within a year, I think Jose Reyes was gone. Mark Burley got dealt somewhere. It was done. And then the same thing happened, with the San Diego Padres, to where, the Padres, they got Justin Upton. I think they got BJ Upton also, James Shields. And they got another big player. And everybody was looking at them like, oh, watch out for the Padres. Padres going to win the World Series. And, they ended up trading James Shields 2 years later to the White Sox for Fernando Tatis Jr. So I think that the Mets could go through that type of team building where they just throw money left and right, and they just hope that, at the end of the day, it's going to work out no matter who else we put in the lineup. And that's just simply not how it goes. We've seen it like this in the past. It does not work that way. So I can see a team like the White Sox this year, instead of getting, kind of bamboozled by, the marketing of James Shields, to give up a potential superstar like Fernando Tatis Jr. I think that this is a way that, they can kind of flip it again to their standards, where, it's not that they're going after James Shields, because for some reason, I don't know why, everybody thought that James Shields was quote-unquote big game James, and freaking lived for the big moment, when he was just, I thought he was garbage all year, like all the time. There was no time where I was looking at James Shields like, oh, this guy is, he's ready for the big game. He was never ready. So, but one thing that, you've seen so far is the hunger, the want, the drive of Marcus Stroman. And I feel like, with him on his 1-year deal, just waiting to see if it works out. If they start slow and Marcus Stroman says he wants out of New York, I could see the White Sox making another deal with, Reynaldo Lopez. Something to look out for. And if the White Sox are able to add Marcus Stroman to a pitching rotation with Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, and Lance Lynn, then you got yourself a team that's ready for the World Series. That is a 4-man rotation that can go at the best of them, no matter what type of day it is. Now you just got to sit there and think, all right, is the lineup going to be good? Is the lineup going to be good enough? And I think if you're able to sign Marcell Ozuna, once again, as a Braves fan, I don't want that to happen, but if he's able to go, just look at the type of energy he brought with, Ronald Acuna Jr. Ronald Acuna Jr. in the last 2 playoff series he's played in before this season was terrible. He wasn't good. Freddie Freeman was good, but he was the only one. He brought steady consistency to the lineup. And, with a team that's just as young as the Braves were, a team that's just as hungry as the Braves are, with a team that's just as star-studded as the Braves are, if you're able to pick up a guy like Marcell Ozuna and just plug him in that Chicago White Sox lineup and just tell him, don't even freaking worry about putting a glove on. Just go take hacks and give us good ABs. And you pair that up with Eloy Jimenez, who's the exact same thing as he is, except a little bit better of a defender. Luis Robert, who is a Gold Glove candidate every year. I don't know who they got in right field, but it doesn't even freaking matter, to be fair. And then the top of their lineup with Yoan Moncada, you still got Yasmani Grandal crushing homers. You still got, a batting champion and a potential Gold Glover at shortstop, who's one of my favorite players to watch. And we're not even mentioning, then again, I also have not even mentioned the American League MVP. The White Sox just made a deal right now, and they're one move away from making them favorites to go out of the AL 1 year or one move away. If I feel like with this team, if they can, or actually I should say 2 moves, if they could get another pitcher, whatever pitcher they want, I advocate going after Stroman, but I doubt that's going to happen. A lot of pieces need to fall into place, so I would just get somebody solid that you can maybe package to go somewhere else in a more long-term gig. Package him up, try and get Stroman, and then sign Marcell Ozuna, and the south side of Chicago may have themselves a title contender, or does have themselves a title contender, may have a team that could actually hoist the trophy at the end of the year. That's something I truly believe. I think that can happen, and I really, really do want that to happen. All right, everybody, I'm going to be taking another break real quick, and I'll be right back to talk about a new Japanese pitcher. And a new Japanese pitcher just got posted today, and I'm just curious. So I went back and I looked at a few players, and I was just wondering, every year we look at Japanese pitchers and think, oh, this is the next big guy. This is the next big name. But how big could he possibly get? I'll answer that in one moment.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, everybody, we are back. So, another Japanese pitcher just got posted today, and his name is Tomoyuki Sugano. That's actually one of the easier names to say. He's a 2-time winner of the Sawamura Award as Japan's best pitcher. Was posted by the Yomiuri Giants, and it added a bit of intrigue to the free agent market, I should say. We have this thing, he was in the World Baseball Classic. We got a glimpse of him, and he fanned 6 in 6 innings against USA at Dodger Stadium, without allowing an earned run. And 4 years later, he's on the market. But I was thinking, I was like, man, it seems like every single year these Japanese pitchers comes out on the market and they're the next big thing in sports. They're the next big thing. Like, who wants, bid all your money for them? Who is this next Japanese star that comes into the league and absolutely takes over? I was thinking about it, and I was like, Japanese pitchers seem to get one every year. I'm like, but are they really as good as advertised? Let's look at this guy's numbers. So, he won the Sawamura Award as the top pitcher in 2017 and 2018. He went 14-2 with 131 strikeouts. He had a 1.97 ERA and 137 1/3 innings this year. In his 8-year career, he's 101-49 with a 2.32 ERA and 1,214 strikeouts and 1,360 innings. Let's see. One MLB scout on Monday said that Sugano's fastball is late action, typically ranges from 91 to 93 miles per hour, topping out at 95. Sugano's slider is known as his best secondary offering. He also throws a forkball and changeup as above average pitches that can be, quote unquote, can be above average pitches. Not sold. He's going to be a free agent, and if he's a free agent, he's immediately below Trevor Bauer, because that's just kind of how it goes. When you get another league's Cy Young Award winner, you have a chance. You think it's going to be something special. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, we've seen a lot of these guys come into the league, but were they really that good in the totality of their career, or are they just flame outs at the end of the day? Do they come in and they make some noise, and then do they just flame out, as most of them tended to do? So I looked up the stats of 5. I took 5 of the most notable pitchers of the last 20 years to show up. I'll even say, well, no, there's one on here that was later. So I got Daisuke Matsuzaka, I got Masahiro Tanaka, Hideo Nomo, Yu Darvish, and Yusei Kikuchi. All big names, all hailing from Japan, and I was wondering, how good were they really? For the totality of their career, did they live up to expectations? Let's start off with Daisuke Matsuzaka. So Daisuke Matsuzaka, I remember when he came into the league, it was this whole big thing about the gyro ball. Oh, he has the gyro ball. And I was like a kid, obviously, in 2007, I was 12 years old, hearing about a gyro ball, and I'm like, what's this weird pitch? And apparently, that was just a way of saying it was like a circle change. I was like, oh, he has a circle changeup? Cool. So does 90% of pitchers in the league now. So I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, Daisuke Matsuzaka, and whenever you hear his name, you're like, man, he's going to be the man. So he came into the league at 26 years old to the Boston Red Sox. In his first year, his rookie season with Boston, he went 15-12 with a 4.40 ERA in 32 starts. He had over 200 innings pitched, which is no slight. That's very good. He had 204 innings pitched, 201 Ks, 80 walks, ERA plus of 1.08, and a FIP of 4.23. Not bad. Really solid rookie year. It looks like he can really build upon it and go to something great, which he did the next year. Next season, in 2008, his age 27 season, 18-3, a 2.90 ERA. He pitched 167 innings. He gave up a career-high 94 walks. He had 154 strikeouts, 160 ERA plus, and a FIP of 4.03, and he ended up 4th in the Cy Young voting that year. I don't know how that gives you 4th in the Cy Young Award, but it is what it is. So you're thinking, man, Daisuke 18-3, what an incredible year. He must have been, from the way that people talk about him, he could have been great after that. Could have. But the next year he got hurt. He had a 4-6 record, a 5.76 ERA in 12 starts. He only pitched 59.1 innings, 54 Ks, 30 walks, ERA plus of 81, and a FIP of 5.09. Not great, but he got hurt. Let's see the bounce back. 25 starts in 2010, 9-6 with a 4.69 ERA, 153 innings pitched. He had 74 walks, 133 strikeouts, an ERA plus of 93, and a FIP of 4.05. Not great. Go to the next year. He's hurt again. 3-3 record, a 5.30 ERA. Let's check out his ERAs for the rest of his career. So in 7 starts, he had a 5.3 ERA. In 2012, he had 11 starts at 8.28 ERA. In 7 starts, he had a 4.42 ERA in 2013. And in 2014, his last season in the big leagues at 33 years old, he made 9 starts and had a 3.89 ERA. So you really only got Masahiro Tanaka for 2 full seasons. Maybe 3 full seasons. And one of those seasons was spectacular. But you really only got him for 1 season. So you're looking at Masahiro Tanaka. So let's go to Masahiro Tanaka. So Daisuke Matsuzaka, he had him good for 1 year. Masahiro Tanaka is, he has more longevity, I would say. He had a pretty damn good career for the majority of it. Let's go for his win-loss record from 2014 to 2020. 13-5, 12-7, 14-4, 13-12, 12-6, 11-9, 3-3. Not spectacular, but not bad. The 14-4 is a great record. 12-6, I'll take it. 12-7, not bad. 13-5, great. ERAs 2.77, 3.51, 3.07, 4.74, 3.75, 4.45, and then a 3.56. Not bad. From 25 to 31, that's amazing. ERA plus. He was only below average 1 year. 138, 116, 140, 190, or 95, not 195, just 95, 112, 101, and 120. Ks are all in the mid-hundreds, almost touching 200 in 2017. He had 194. Walks incredibly low, 21, 27, 36, 41, 35, 40, and 8. Masahiro Tanaka, with a 78-46 record, is probably the best. Let's go to Hideo Nomo. So, Masahiro Tanaka, definitely worth the money. Look at Hideo Nomo. Came to the league in 95, so he played 10 years in the big leagues. 13-6, 16-11, 14-12, 6-12, 12-8, 8-12, 13-10, 16-6 with the Dodgers in 2002, 16-13, 4-11, 5-8. ERA-wise, 2.54, 3.19, 4.25, 4.92. Let's see, got 4.54, 4.74, 4.5. 393, 309, and then his last two seasons, 825 and 724. Strikeouts were big. He had 2 big years as strikeouts, 236 in 1995, 234, 233, 176, 161, 181, 220, 193, 177, 54, and 59. So we did have a few great years. I would say good years. But he had a one-time All-Star. He was consistent. He was on the field. He put up between 170 to 230 innings a year, which back then was kind of the standard for starting pitchers. But are you really getting somebody, like when we look back at Hideo Nomo, we always think that he was like the greatest pitcher in Japanese, history. In his 12-year career, his record was 123 and 109. He had a career 4.24 ERA. Like, yeah, he was really good, but was it really that great? Like at his peak years with the Dodgers, 81 and 66, a 3.74 ERA. That's good. That's not really great, though. Is he really going to, are these guys like the number one people? Are these type of numbers, like historically, history repeats itself. The best one that we have is Masahiro Tanaka, and so far, and, we're already saying that this new guy is going to be right below Trevor Bauer on who's getting picked. For me, I don't really get it. And let's go to Yu Darvish. So Yu Darvish started pitching professionally. This one I have his Japan League stats also, which is kind of nice. The other ones, they did not have that at all. So we have Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish started at 18 in 2005 with Nippon. It gets cut off, so it just has Nippon Ham, which is kind of a funny name. But for his 6 seasons or 7 seasons with the Japanese League, his ERA went ERA. So 3.53, 2.89, 1.82, 1.88, 1.73, 1.78, 1.44. He went 5-5, 12-5, 15-5, 16-4, 15-5, 12-8, 18-6. Now you're looking at that, you're like, dang. And he was eating innings, 94 innings, 146, 149, 207, 200, 182, 202, 232. It was all in the Japanese leagues. And then he came over to America, and we're like, dang, all right, this guy's going to be the one. So let's look at what he did. So his first year, age 25, he was 16-9, 3.9 ERA, 191 innings. Really doing it. 221 Ks. He was the man. Did he make the All-Star team? No. Did not make the All-Star team. Let's go to 2013. We have 13-9, 5.91 ERA. He's got a 2.92 ERA. Or he's got a 2.92 ERA. And 209 innings pitched and a 277 strikeouts. 277 strikeouts. Yeah, so we had 277 strikeouts. And, those are great years. Those 2 years are absolutely fantastic. And then when 2014, 10-7, he had a 3.06 ERA, 182 strikeouts, but he was down a little bit, 10 less starts. He had a little bit of injury concerns, and that was it. He had 3 years of injury concerns up until this last season where he really bounced back. So let's look at 2016. In 2 teams, he went from AA and AAA Texas, and then with the Texas Rangers, we made 17 starts, 7-5 with a 3.41 ERA, 100 innings pitched. He stayed hurt. Let's go to 2017 with Texas, 6-9 with a 4.14 ERA, 137 innings in 22 games. He was hurt. Let's go with the Dodgers, 4-3. He's only 30 years old. He's 4-3 in 9 starts with the Dodgers in 2017. Let's see, why is his ERA all messed up? 3.44 ERA, and then he kind of choked it down the stretch. You know what I'm saying? He kind of choked it down the stretch in the postseason. In 2018, he came along 1-3 with the Chicago White Sox in 8 games with a 5.43 ERA. Not great. Really not that great. In his 8 MLB seasons, he's 7-1 with 71-5-6 or 56. God, why can't I talk? 71-56 in 8 years. In 8 years, that's an average of less than 10 wins per season. While he's pitched over 1,100 innings. If you look at the averages, that's really not amazing. And let's go with, his foreign years. In 15 seasons, he's won 165 games. 165 games in 15 years? That's barely even a Hall of Famer. And let's go to Yusei Kikuchi, the new guy who's came up, he came 2019, he was 28 years old. He had a 6-11 record with a 5.46 ERA, and then last year he was 2-4 with a 5.17 ERA. People are trying to talk about how this guy's the next big thing in sports, and I just don't believe it. I could see him going to the San Francisco Giants, the San Diego Padres, the Yankees, the Red Sox. They're all the teams that are interested in him, but to sit there and immediately think that once you get one of these guys, it's going to change your franchise for the better, it's not really how that goes. It never has in the past, and I don't think it ever really will. You can get excited about it for sure. I wouldn't poo-poo it on the fact that, you're not excited for anything like that. But, there were only a few success stories out of a very decent sample size. I could go back to the hitters as well. We had Hideki Matsui, who was amazing. You have Shohei Ohtani, who's very good right now, but as we know, he's had pitching struggles because he's always been hurt. Just don't go all in on the Japanese pitcher train. I would say that right now. I think it's pretty fluky. That's just me. But who knows? This guy could be the guy that proves me wrong and can be a number 1 starter on a World Series team instead of being like all these other guys and be at best a 2. All right. Rant over. I am taking a quick break, my final break, and I will be right back to discuss the biggest moves in the history of winter meetings. I got 10 of them. So I'll be back to rank those for you in just a moment.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Alrighty, guys. So, top 10 moves that happened in the winter meetings. I just picked one from every team. I don't want to go down the list at all, like, of every team's, every moves. I just picked one from every team. I'm going to start off with number one. Number one, the Giants land Barry Bonds. So, in the 1992 winter meetings, we're in Louisville, Kentucky. The ownership group was looking to make a splash, as new owners tend to do. They wanted a new era of the franchise, so they signed star slugger Barry Bonds to a 6-year, $43.75 million contract, which was at that point the richest deal in baseball. His dad Bobby Bonds and Willie Mays both played for the Giants. Looked like it was a homecoming, and the rest is pretty much history. Barry Bonds is one of the greatest players of all time. That's just how it all played out, I guess. Let's go to the Diamondbacks. So the Diamondbacks had a pretty big move that set up one of the best teams that never won a World Series, and the deal was the D-backs got Edwin Jackson and Ian Kennedy in a 3-team deal for Max Scherzer and Daniel Schlereth. So Max Scherzer in 2009, wasn't Max Scherzer yet. He was good, but he wasn't great. And they packaged him up in a deal, sent him to Detroit, who already had Justin Verlander, and who were a couple years away from getting David Price, to form one of the greatest pitching trios we have seen in a long time. That team was so ridiculously stacked. It was absolutely incredible, the type of talent that they had on that team. They had, just in the pitching staff alone, they had obviously those big three. They had Hannibal Sanchez, later in the lifespan of that Tigers team. They had Jabba Chamberlain. They had, on the offensive side, J.D. Martinez. They had Torrey Hunter, Miguel Cabrera, Ian Kinsler. That team was absolutely freaking loaded, and they could not win a championship. There has to be a documentary on that team as the best team that never won a championship. 100% has to. Absolutely has to be. I would love to see that documentary. This was a giant move back in the 50s. So, in a franchise-changing move that didn't technically take place at the winter meetings, according to the United Press story that ran in the Pittsburgh Press in November 22nd, 1952, the Rule 5 draft was, quote, generally held in conjunction with the annual minor league meetings, but was staged separately this year. Still, the Rule 5 draft and the winter meetings are always associated with one another, so we're including this in the transaction here. So the Pirates sent Branch Rickey Jr. to those winter Major League Draft meetings on November 22nd, weeks before the winter meetings, and paid $4,000 to the Brooklyn Dodgers to select Roberto Clemente. So Roberto Clemente was claimed by the Pittsburgh Pirates in the Rule 5 draft in 1954 for only $4,000 when he was a part of their Montreal team, another team that, a few years before that had Jackie Robinson come up. Now the rest is history. Clemente had 3,000 hits, winning 2 World Series rings, has a Hall of Fame career, and has, the humanitarian award named after him, who was just handed out this week to Adam Wainwright and to one other person. I'm forgetting his name. But, that's a big, big, big deal. As we all know, the Pirates, I think, only championships were because Branch Rickey sent $4,000 to the Brooklyn Dodgers. Do you imagine if the Brooklyn Dodgers still had Roberto Clemente through those years? How many championships would the Dodgers have had? Absolutely incredible. Just a few years ago, in 2014, the John Lester lands in the North Side. So the Cubs, young up-and-coming, they just got Theo Epstein. The 2014 winter meetings were in San Diego. They won the baseball lottery, quote-unquote, as Joe Madden said to reporters. They hit 6 years, $155 million for John Lester. They got Theo Epstein. And what made this so big was, in 6 years in Chicago, Lester and the Cubs went to the playoffs 5 times. He won 3 division crowns. They reached the NLCS 3 times and won the World Series in 2016. And it was also really big. He was a Cy Young runner-up in 2016 and was the co-MVP of the 2016 NLCS. So those titles would not have happened without John Lester landing there in 2014. A great move at the winter meetings. Let's go forward. Maddox chooses Atlanta. So for the Braves, Hall of Fame executive John Shorholtz went to the 1992 winter meetings thinking that the reigning Cy Young Award winner Greg Maddux would likely end up with the Yankees. Yanks general manager Gene Michael traveled back to New York to show Greg Maddux around town, but New York's $34 million offer wasn't enough to prevent Maddux from accepting a 5-year, $28 million deal with the Braves. So he went to the Braves for 5 years, $28 million in 1993, and they ended up in 2 years later in 1995 winning a World Series, at which he also won his 4 consecutive NL Cy Young Award. So he won 4 consecutive Cy Young Awards from 1992 to 1995. Greg Maddux, one of the greatest pitchers of all time, took $6 million less to live in Atlanta instead of New York and dodged becoming a Yankee. I wonder what they did to him. I guess we'll never know. We have a few more left. I'm going to get out of your hair. Let's see. Next up, we got the Rangers. So, 1988, the Rangers made a deal that, in hindsight, is insane. So the Rangers got, in the winter meetings in 1988, they got Rafael Palmeiro, Drew Hall, Jamie Moyer, Julio Franco, and Nolan Ryan. And who did they give up by chance to get those? All those are great names. They gave up Luis Benitez, Pablo Delgado, Paul Kilgus, Kurt Wilkerson, Mitch Williams, and Steve Wilson, Jerry Brown, Audie McDonald, and Pat O'Brien. Who are those people? The Rangers went 87 and 75 in 1986, and they had an impressive group of young stars, all that kind of stuff, and they had to spice it up a little bit. So they added Franco Palmeiro. They became an offensive powerhouse that maintained the reputation of the better part of 30 years. And, adding Nolan Ryan added a huge boost to the credibility and the momentum of opening a new ballpark in Arlington in 1994. So that was a big deal on getting them a new ballpark. The Minnesota Twins, in the Rule 5 draft, selected the great Johan Santana. Johan Santana was owned by the Marlins, and the Twins got not only Johan Santana, but cash as well for Jared Camp. Who's Jared Camp? No one really knows, but the Twins got one of the best pitchers of the 2000s who, barring too many Tommy John injuries, could have been one of the best pitchers ever. Incredible. He was robbed of the Cy Young in 2005, despite clearly being the most deserving candidate, and won in 2004 and 2006. Should have had 3 straight, which would have been him, Greg Maddux, and Randy Johnson would be the only 3 pitchers in history to win 3 straight, but he got cheated out of 2005. He ranks 4th in Twins history in ERA, 4th in strikeouts, and only over 8 seasons. And they won 4 division titles in that span before he left to the Mets and started suffering, a considerate amount of elbow injuries. Another deal that created one of the best teams in the history of baseball that never won a championship. Detroit got Miguel Cabrera and Dontrelle Willis from the Marlins for Cameron Maybin, Andrew Miller, Burke Badenhop, Mike Rabello, Dallas Traherne, and Eulogio de la Cruz. Let's just let that sit for a second. A 4-time batting champion. He's won a Triple Crown. He's a 2-time MVP. And Dontrelle Willis, who the D-Train was, if for those who don't remember, electric. Dontrelle Willis was amazing. And also sneakily crushed homers. It was awesome. But that was in 2007. They got Miguel Cabrera, Dontrelle Willis for pennies on the dollar. But because Andrew Miller at the time was not Andrew Miller. Andrew Miller was he was good, but he wasn't great. He wasn't the Andrew Miller that we were looking at today. People were trying to say that he was a starter, which was strange. Let's go. We got 2 more. The Red Sox got Manny Ramirez. So in 2000, he joined forces with David Ortiz in one of the best middle-of-the-order duos in history, winning 2 World Series. He slashed .312, .411, and .588 to go with 247 homers and 868 RBIs. Granted, it was Manny being Manny was kind of, a headache that, made people scratch their heads in Boston for years. But, he had an 8-year, $160 million contract in December of 2000, done at the winter meetings. And, that deal right there won Boston 2 championships. And then lastly, Frank Robinson goes from the Cincinnati Reds to the Baltimore Orioles for Milt Pappas, Jack Boldschoen, and Dick Simpson. So that won Baltimore multiple championships. In 1966, he won the 1966 Triple Crown and MVP award, and he won the World Series title that year, and then another one in 1970. So they won 2 titles. He won the MVP and a Triple Crown award in 1966. All that happened at the winter meetings. Some of the best deals in winter meetings history, and of some of the best deals in the Rule 5 draft that has ever happened. And with that being said, that is going to be our show. I will be back on Tuesday with a new episode. Enjoy your weekend, enjoy your families, and enjoy the holidays. You can follow me on Instagram at EvanWorley23. Play me in Tap Baseball if you're bored. The nickname is EvanWorley23, and I would like to thank you for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show because it really helps us out. And if you could also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you all, and have a great weekend.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.